The ego. A curious little thing, isn't it? It whispers in our ears, telling us we're more important than we really are. It's like that overly confident court jester who thinks he's running the kingdom. But as any good king knows, it's best to keep jesters in their place. Today, we'll talk about why it's time to dethrone the ego and how doing so will set you free. The ego is that voice inside your head that insists you're the center of the universe. It craves attention, validation, and control. But the truth is, the ego is a trickster, a master of illusions. It wants you to believe that your worth is tied to external things, status, possessions, and the opinions of others. But let me tell you, that's nothing more than a royal prank. The ego loves to paint grand portraits of ourselves, larger-than-life images that make us feel important. But here's the gist. Those images are nothing but smoke and mirrors. The Stoics understood that true greatness doesn't come from how others see you, but from living by your principles. So, it's time to put down the brush and stop painting ourselves into corners. Carrying the ego is like lugging around a chest of heavy jewels. It's exhausting, and the jewels aren't even real. When you let go of the ego, you also let go of the weight it puts on your shoulders. You become free to move, to think, and to live without constantly worrying about protecting your so-called image. Trust me, your back will thank you. Humility isn't about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less. I know, it sounds like a paradox, but it's true. When you put aside your ego, you open the door to real connections with others. You're no longer trying to prove anything. Instead, you're focused on learning, growing, and contributing. It's a lesson that every good ruler must learn, and believe me, it makes for a much happier kingdom. When you let go of the ego, you free yourself from the chains of pride, insecurity, and fear. You no longer need to control everything or be the best at everything. Instead, you become free to simply be, to live authentically and fully. The Stoics knew that this kind of freedom is the only true wealth, far more valuable than any crown or scepter. Ready to unseat that troublesome ego? Here are some Stoic practices to help. Daily reflection. Start each day by considering how you can serve others and contribute to the greater good. Mindful detachment. Practice seeing situations objectively without letting your emotions or pride take the reins. Gratitude. Focus on what you have rather than what you lack. This simple shift in mindset can do wonders. Embrace discomfort. Remember, growth often comes from stepping out of your comfort zone. Let go of the need to always look good or be right. Remember, true freedom comes not from what you possess or how others see you, but from mastering yourself. The ego may be loud, but it's not the ruler of your life. You are. So, let's end this charade, shall we? Dethrone the ego and you'll find that the kingdom of your life is far more peaceful and prosperous without it. The ego doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's cultivated over time like weeds in a garden. It grows from the seeds of fear, insecurity, and the need for validation. If we're not careful, it can choke out the virtues we want to nurture, like humility, kindness, and wisdom. To truly dethrone the ego, we must understand its roots. Ask yourself, what fears or insecurities are feeding your ego? Once you identify them, you can begin to pull them out and plant something far more valuable in their place: virtue, compassion, and true inner strength. The ego is often the root of conflict, both internal and external. It drives us to prove we're right, to win at all costs, and to dominate others. But as any wise ruler knows, victory at the expense of peace is no victory at all. When you set aside your ego, you open the door to true resolution and understanding. Conflicts are no longer about winning or losing, but about finding common ground and building stronger relationships. This is the true path to peace, both within yourself and with others. The ego often blinds us to the greater good. It makes us think that our desires, our needs, are more important than those of others. But in a kingdom, the well-being of all must come before the whims of one. True freedom comes from putting the greater good above the self. When you let go of your ego, you're able to see the bigger picture, to make decisions that benefit not just you, but everyone around you. And that, my friends, is what it truly means to lead a life of purpose and service. False humility, one of the ego's cleverest disguises. It's when we pretend to be humble, all the while secretly craving praise and recognition. It's like wearing a crown of thorns, thinking it makes you virtuous, but all it does is draw attention to your suffering. True humility isn't about putting on a show. It's about genuinely letting go of the need for approval. It's about being content with who you are and what you do, without needing to broadcast it to the world. So, drop the act, my friend. True humility is far more freeing than false modesty. When you let go of the ego, you also let go of the need to wear masks, to be someone you're not. Living authentically means embracing who you truly are, with all your strengths and flaws. It means being honest with yourself and others, and living in a way that's true to your values. In a world that constantly pressures us to conform, living authentically is a radical act of courage, but it's also the key to true freedom. When you stop trying to be what others expect and start being who you truly are, you'll find that life becomes much more fulfilling and much more fun. The ego may promise power and control, but what it truly delivers is isolation and unrest. To be free, to truly live, is to let go of that false sense of self and embrace the person you are meant to be. It's about finding joy in simplicity, strength in humility, and freedom in authenticity. The ego has a cunning way of sabotaging our success. It blinds us to our faults, making us overconfident, and causes us to stumble right when we're about to cross the bridge to our goals. It convinces us that we're invincible, that we don't need help, or that we're always right. But these are the very traps that can lead to our downfall. To overcome the ego's sabotage, we must remain vigilant and humble. Recognize when your pride is leading you astray, and don't be afraid to seek help or admit when you're wrong. True strength comes from learning and growing, not from pretending to be perfect. The ego often tricks us into believing that we can control everything, our environment, other people, even our fate. But the Stoics teach us that most of what happens in life is beyond our control. The only thing we can truly control is our response to it. Letting go of the illusion of control is liberating. It frees us from the anxiety of trying to manage the unmanageable and allows us to focus on what truly matters: our actions, our choices, and our character. Remember, a wise ruler knows when to step back and let nature take its course. The ego tells us that vulnerability is a weakness, that showing our true selves will make us appear less than others. But in reality, vulnerability is one of our greatest strengths. It allows us to connect deeply with others, to build trust, and to live authentically. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you open the door to true relationships and meaningful connections. It's not about exposing yourself to harm. It's about having the courage to be real, even when it's difficult. And in that, there is great power, far greater than the ego could ever offer. Gratitude is the antidote to the ego. When you focus on what you're thankful for, you shift the spotlight away from yourself and onto the abundance that surrounds you. It reminds you that you are part of something greater, that your life is enriched by the contributions of others. In place of the ego's demands, cultivate a heart of gratitude. It's a simple practice, but one that can transform your perspective and your life. When you lead with gratitude, you'll find that contentment and joy naturally follow, leaving no room for the ego's empty pursuits. Destroying the ego is not the end of the journey, it's the beginning. When you strip away the false layers, you're left with your true self. A self that's ready to explore, to grow, and to embrace life fully. The horizon is wide and the possibilities are endless. The ego often disguises itself as the fear of failure. It tells us that we must succeed at all costs or risk losing our worth. But this fear is a trap, a way of keeping us from trying, from growing, and from reaching our true potential. To destroy the ego, we must confront this fear head-on. Embrace failure as a teacher, not as a threat. Understand that each misstep is a stepping stone on the path to success. When you let go of the fear of failure, you free yourself to take bold risks and live without limits. The ego clings to identities, titles, roles, and labels as if they define who we are. It convinces us that without these things, we are nothing. But the truth is, our essence is far deeper than any identity we wear on the surface. Detach yourself from the need to be defined by titles or achievements. Your worth isn't tied to what you do, but to who you are at your core. When you let go of the ego's attachment to identity, you discover a deeper, more fulfilling sense of self, one that's rooted in authenticity and inner peace. Letting go of the ego isn't just about discarding pride. It's about freeing yourself from the burdens that hold you back. The need for approval, the fear of judgment, the constant comparison to others. These are the chains that keep us from living fully. When you let go of these burdens, you step into a life of true freedom. You become lighter, more joyful, and more open to the beauty that surrounds you. The world is vast, and it's yours to explore, unhindered by the weight of the ego. The ego believes it knows everything, but true wisdom comes from understanding how much we still have to learn. It's about embracing curiosity, asking questions, and being open to new perspectives. When we silence the ego, we make space for wisdom to flourish. True wisdom is humble, patient, and ever-evolving. It's not about being right, but about seeking the truth. When you prioritize wisdom over the ego's desire for validation, you unlock the potential for endless growth and understanding. My friends, the journey to destroy the ego is not an easy one, but it is the path to true freedom. It is the path to becoming the person you were always meant to be, unbound by fear, pride, or the need for approval. Remember, life is not about proving yourself to others. It's about living in alignment with your values, embracing humility, and seeking wisdom at every turn. So I ask you, are you ready to step into the light of true freedom? To cast aside the chains of ego and embrace the fullness of life? The choice is yours, and the journey begins now. Let's walk this path together.